You mentioned the start of the season there, quite a lot of draws. I think it's been quite a sticky start of the season potentially, but I guess again with sort of the new players coming in and the loss of the key players who we just spoken about, a couple of injuries along the way, which I'll touch on in more detail in a moment. New manager, of course, new ideas a little bit. They're currently sitting in 13th in the Serie A table, but picked up what we as Liverpool fans know is actually quite a credible draw over the weekend against Atalanta.
Yeah, but I think the disappointing aspect of that is that it was a last minute equaliser from Atalanta. And they were at home. Their home form was one of the things that sort of kind of propped them up as well the last few years, and they've now drawn if we take, which I never usually like doing actually, but if you take sort of the back end of last year, they've drawn six consecutive home games now. But yeah, I suppose it's still positive because of where Atalanta are, but Atalanta are only sort of two or three places above them. They've had a really difficult start this year, again without probably losing too many of their players. But yeah, it's probably where people thought they would eventually have to, have a bit of a dip. But again, if they're not losing, then it's probably fairly positive because a couple of wins can propel them up the table.
Yeah, it's still very early days, of course. As I say, when you have been cherry picked from a little bit, like it felt like Bologna were, having punched above their weight somewhat last season, yeah, it's kind of par for the course that you might make a slower than expected start of the season. You touched on injuries a moment ago, Kev. Lewis Ferguson, formerly of Aberdeen, is a long-term absentee, of course, off the back of a great season. Cambiaghi was a summer arrival from Atalanta, I think I'm right in saying he's picked up an injury as well. And El Azouzzi is the defensive midfielder that I've also noticed is currently injured too. They all feel like pretty decent sized losses for a squad like Bologna.
Yeah, because you need those players to come in and replace the others. If you look at what they've been able to put out on the pitch from sort of a starting lineup perspective, they've really been using players that were already there. Now, I think with the best will in the world, the other players around are probably realised that they weren't getting starts last season because they weren't maybe good enough to step into the shoes of those that are out. So the players that are coming in, you want them to sort of fill that role. Also, there's a young English player, Samuel Illing Jr. there as well, who's made a couple of sort of, I suppose, impactful performances off the bench. He sort of scored an equaliser for them a few weeks back, where they could probably use their strengths is out wide. You've got Riccardo Orsolini on the right, and then you've got Ndoye on the left. Illing Jr.'s kind of been coming in for them as well. I think they will try and attack the space that anybody leaves between the fullback and the centre back. But yeah, I think the misses of what's come in is really what's going to maybe hurt them most until they can get some of them back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you touched on one of them there, but I want to speak about some of the danger men if possible. You mentioned Orsolini. He is probably one of the standout candidates in this conversation, but I did want to look or speak a bit more about Santiago Castro because 20-year-old Argentinian seems to be catching the eye. He scored the goal in that draw over the weekend, of course, but he feels like one they might well have unearthed and could be sort of, the next star that potentially at some point leaves Bologna, is fair to say.
Yeah, well, I think he's had the perfect transition really because he came in January. Bologna were flying high. They had Joshua Zirkzee sort of filling that role. Again, sort of different players, but he didn't have to sort of come in and hit the ground running. He's only 20 years old. He scored once last season, but it just getting minutes here and there. He scored 3 and 6 this season. He looks from the matches and also the highlights I've seen as quite a busy player. I think there's a beauty in that sort of fearlessness of youth that I think he will try and get. The illustrious names in Virgil van Dijk and even Ibrahim Konate. I think he will look to get amongst them. He drops deep. I think as part of the tactics that Italiano likes to use, but he will also sort of try and run him behind. So he's also, if you look at the goal he scored this weekend, he can crack one off from long range. So I think there's that risk as well. Be interesting if he tries to test Allison from range if he gets in I don't know sight. I'm thinking of a better
Shooting
better
distance.
word there. Shooting
Yeah.
distance. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely one we need to be wary of. And I wonder, are there any sort of hallmarks? As you were speaking there, I just couldn't stop thinking about Lautaro Martinez at Milan. It sort of reminded me of that a little bit. Just has a shot almost from anywhere and very busy and gets in amongst it. Is he similar? I mean, other than nationality, are there any similarities there at all?
Yeah, no, I think so. And you'd also maybe liken it to Julian Alvarez, who was at City. Again, they're very mobile strikers. and not afraid to take a shot if they get a chance to, which I think will be yeah, exactly probably what they'll try and play on. I don't think they'll sit terribly deep, but I think they'll probably try and build from a quite low base, and then he might get a little bit isolated unless the team move forwards together. So I think yeah, he is very much in a sort of similar vein to Lautaro.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, you've touched on it a couple of times. You've alluded to how they might approach this game. What are you expecting from them, I guess? Because we said right at the top of the show, in the Champions League, which is something in itself for Bologna, with all due respect to them, of course. How do you think they come at this? Because obviously it's at Anfield. There is no return leg, of course, because of the new format of the Champions League and stuff like that. Bit of a free hit for them. Do you think they'll stick to their usual game plan? Do you think they'll, I don't know, alter how they go about this? Because you don't want to get a hiding, of course. Not saying they will, because they're clearly a very good side. But what do you think Italiano does to sort of get a decent result performance out of his team?
I think the only thing that they'll change is what I alluded to earlier, which is they'll set up for 3-3. I think they will see it as a free hit. They can leave here, and they've still got so many games in front of them that it might not affect, if they then get into the playoffs, which is their probably bare minimum. And we've all seen the statistics banding around that. I think if you get 9 points, then you've got something like a 90% chance of getting into the playoffs. And I think they'll try and play a possession game. They welcome the press because they do start from a sort of a very low build-up play. They like Skorupski, the goalkeeper, to get involved. And actually, he's another one. He's probably the one that's still there from their spine that could have one of those games that we sometimes see at Anfield, where a goalkeeper just comes in as sort of a worldy performance, makes sort of 10, 15 saves, and sort of somebody scrapes away with a 0-0, or maybe, Liverpool sneak it with 1-0. But I think they will use him. So I think then if they can get to half time on level terms or even one behind, I think they just might move that sort of build up a little bit further, maybe edge of their box. But otherwise, I think I expect to see a lot of passing between the back four for a lot of the game, just to sort of kill the atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that would be a sensible way of going about it as well at Anfield, I would have thought. And as you said there, like, there is, there's bigger sort of opportunities to come for Bologna in a way. I think this is somewhat of a free hit because there's so many games, and that 9 point mark, as you touched upon too, could be what they've got in their mind. Okay, I never normally ask this in these shows, but I will make an exception for this one because obviously you're a Liverpool fan, and also I wanted to know how you kind of view Bologna in this conversation as well, because our approach, sort of selection-wise, I guess, because there's a lot has been made about Arne Slot and the rotation or lack thereof. We rotated a lot last week for the Carabao Cup. I don't anticipate anything like those sort of wholesale changes. However, do you think there is a little bit of scope for Liverpool to make one or two alterations to our selection for this one because of the quality, with all due respect again?
Yeah, I think there is. I do wonder if Jurgen Klopp would still be in charge. There might be a hangover from what Atalanta did at Anfield last year. They're similar teams in kind of the size of the club, but very different in how they sort of approach games. I fear, probably as a Liverpool fan, I fear that, and sorry, Costas, but if Tsimikas plays left back, Riccardo Orsolini is very much where the danger is. Again, they'll try and get a numerical advantage in midfield. They like their either fullback, that centre back to step in, or whether it's the fullbacks coming in, or even Castro dropping back. So I don't know. I think we could see maybe Endo start. And I think again, if Slot changes the makeup of the Liverpool midfield, I think that could maybe mean that we struggle for a little bit. But the quality overall, as I said about the players that have come in and the other ones that aren't available, there is sort of a kind of a significant drop off in quality between the two sides, I think.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So finally, then, with all of that in mind, I mean, I guess you're going to predict a Liverpool win for this one, but I guess more broadly, how do you see Liverpool achieving that win is probably the better way of asking the question.
I think they'll go 1-0 up before half time and then probably get another goal. So I'm kind of predicting 2-0. I think for all their struggles this season, we've seen that apart from against Napoli when they lost 3-0, Bologna haven't really sort of collapsed. Yeah. And I think they've got that about them against the side of Liverpool's quality to not collapse. It depends then if they if it's still 1-0 late in the game, then they could push and get overexcited, and we might Liverpool, sorry, Liverpool might get another goal and it'd be free. But I think 2-0 would be a sort of satisfactory result for all, and they'd walk away thinking that that was a good night for them, really. Or yeah, satisfactory. You don't say good, do you, when you lose?
No, but yeah, like you say, I think they will have their eyes on different games in this Champions League, because this is obviously the pot A side for them and all that sort of stuff away from home too. So yeah, I think they will be targeting other points from elsewhere potentially, hopefully anyway, because a nice straightforward victory will be very pleasant. Kev, absolute pleasure speaking to you once again. Let people know where you can find yourself, your work, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so predominantly on the Italian football. So go to Total Italian Football website, our socials. We'll see everything that we've got from people out in Italy at the ground. And if you follow me at Rabbit on the usual socials, Twitter, X, and Instagram, you'll see the prep work going into my follow up of the book Divided Cities, the world's most passionate single city derbies, which has been out for about 18 months now.
But man, make sure you check all that stuff out. We just about got through that with me being able to speak more or less, which is good news. That bodes well for the rest of the day and the week. Take care. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.